On to the youth portfolio. This will be you. You're going to put your jacket on for this?
I'd love to call Danny out to the stand, please. Cool. All right. So, Danielle and myself have kindly presented a slide deck for us to be able to enjoy at your leisure. I would also like to introduce Danielle Endicott. So she is the youth advisor for the council, and she's the one who's going to be helping me lead this space in terms of the youth portfolio and abroad. So she is with Gary, again, superstar, and I'm going to be presenting with Danielle. She's going to chime in when needed, and I'd love to go through it. So let's kick her off. Danielle, do you want to introduce yourself? Or?
Yeah, as Tyler said, I'm Danielle Endicott. I'm the Community Development Advisor for Youth here at Christchurch City Council. You might have seen me around in my previous role in engagement, but yeah, have recently joined the Community Partnerships team, and I'm just up here today to support our youth portfolio lead.
So there's quite a lot in this portfolio, and it's quite substantial. The space is very big, and I do apologise for the lateness. It's 2 months late. And also the multicultural report is going to be coming next month, hopefully. That is currently in its draft form. And we'll move on to the sheets. So just a reminder that youth are defined as 12 to 24 on average, making up 15% of our population. There's 76,000 of our young people, which is 19% of the city's population in Christchurch. If it was between 0 and 24, there'd be quite a substantial amount more than that, probably nearing closer to 50%. Danielle, did you want to?
Yeah, so just as a bit of context, there are a few documents that guide the work that Council does in the youth space. So a few of our internal documents include the Strengthening Communities Together strategy and the Equity and Inclusion policy, and these commit us to working and uplifting our youth sector, and also hearing from a wide range of voices in our community, including our young people. And we also have the Christchurch Youth Action Plan, which Council were part of forming in partnership with a lot of different youth organisations across the city and with the voices of a lot of different young people. This document is a few years old now, so it could be quite interesting to get back in touch with the relevant stakeholders and make sure that this still represents the needs of our people and also tahi, our young people.
Awesome. And actually quickly going over what Danielle was elaborating to in terms of the Youth Action Plan, there are quite a lot of points within the Action Plan that are being met, but there are also some being unmet. The Youth Hub was one of them, which is actually contributing very heavily to the Youth Action Plan, but there's other things that aren't related to us in terms of public transport accessibility and safety on the street. So we have had quite a few engagements with multiple organisations. The first one I'll talk about is the Christchurch Youth Council. We've signed a memorandum of understanding with them, and they are working alongside us as partners to do civics education in schools and get them to understand what youth engagement looks like and how you're able to contribute to the council level. Rerenga Awa and the Canterbury Youth Workers Collective organisation I really enjoy. They have a wide range of networks across the board, and they have something called Revision, which is youth auditing. So they do youth audits throughout all of the facilities around the city, which includes South Library. They've recently done Riccarton Mall. They've done a youth audit in Riccarton Mall, Westfield, and young people walk into the space and they give their two cents on what they could do to improve or make things better for young people around the environment. And the last one was School Strike for Climate. You probably had an email that they're going to be coming down and saying g'day on the 27th of September. I got to run a workshop with them around understanding what local government does and what central government does. So they are going to be saying g'day, so I encourage everyone to come. I'd also like to invite Danielle to talk on these too.
Yeah, just as a few updates, so the Christchurch Youth Council, there was a wee while where there was bit of a disconnect between the flow of information between us and them, but staff have been working quite closely with them recently to sort of restore that ongoing relationship and partnership. And we're also able to recently partner with them around a bit of early engagement on an upcoming consultation. So the place-based network plan, council staff and the youth council were able to go to an event together to gather a few young voices on that topic. And then just a few updates on Rerenga Awa. So just to elaborate on the range of networks they have. So they've got a few formalised networks that focus on some of their population priority groups. So they've got a network around working with the Rainbow community, Māori communities, and they're also looking into a Pasifika network as well.
Cool. We have had the amazing vote for the Youth Hub, and we all know what's going on with the Youth Hub, so we don't need to elaborate too much on that. But the next one is a big one. So this here has been using quite a lot of my time in this portfolio, which is around city safety and youth crime in action. So YCD have been doing amazing work in the space, particularly working in the Igloo and running their fresh events across the city. Got to join Councillor Peters at the pool party last week. We had a bomb comp. And the Igloo has shown some really, really good numbers in terms of, one, the uptick in visitors. On average, I talked to them yesterday and they said they're getting close to 100 through their doors every day between the hours of 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock. And that keeps them in check. They also do barbering, they give them food. And actually, I wanted to give a shout out to Kairos, who actually donate food to the Igloo for the young people to be able to have a kai. And also, there is a bakery, which I've written down, just up the road.
Grizzly Bakery.
Grizzly Bakery. Thank you very much. Who are donating a lot of their baking goods. And they get cleaned out, they said. And I'd like to invite Danielle to talk on this slide too.
Yeah, I think the Igloo has been quite a success so far, and recently speaking to our facilities team, they've actually noticed an increase of patronage in the bus exchange overall since the Igloo's opened, and they've also received a lower amount of incidents being reported, so I think that reflects quite well on what they're doing there.
And to close on YCD, they are actually looking at training up security staff around codes of ethics and the way that we should be working with our young people. Security are doing a good job in trying to get to know the kids, but I think there are some work-ons in terms of appropriate boundaries for our young people and know what's on and what's not. And yeah, now we're going to move on to the next slide, which is predominantly my part. So I've been talking to a few organisations in the University of Canterbury and with Cheryl Doig. Now, there was something called an intergenerational fairness model, and it is adopted by the UN. And what that looks like is it is a collaborative model which ensures that there's economic development and intergenerational thinking, meaning that those get to benefit today and they also get to benefit in the future. It's a really simple tool. And throughout this strategy, we are actually talking about future generations, our own strengthening community strategy. It says it multiple times as we see here. I would like to see what else we could do in terms of that intergenerational fairness tool and the way that council does things on the day-to-day. And we'd be really surprised, actually, about how much we do in terms of intergenerational fairness, from transport to water to community. A lot of that is actually intergenerational, and we're probably already doing a lot of it. But it would be really cool to see an insight from the units about how forward-thinking they go. How far out do they plan for, and how far out do we plan for as elected members? Because quite often young people say that they're not thinking about them, and I think that if we are able to show that we are doing our very best to do that, I think that would be really beneficial. Danielle, do you have anything on this?
Happy to move on to the next slide.
Cool. So on page 61, you'll see the events that we've attended as youth leads, and there's been quite a lot. And it's been a really busy space for us, and we've really enjoyed the interactions we've had. The interactions we've had actually get a big shout out to the mayor over here, We had an event in that top corner there with international students from all over the world
That's very good.
coming to enjoy the festivities at Ngahoe Whamarai. Danielle was there with YCD with the Igloo launch, and we've got some youth council engagements. But there's also a really innovative one that I wanted to talk about. It's called Air Fiti Fiti, and it was an event for young entrepreneurs, and it's been really successful over the last few years. They come, they give a pitch, they work with local businesses to give a pitch and try and fix a problem. That night was extremely beneficial for me to see how these young minds work. A lot of them are more technologically advanced and innovative than a lot of us do think. And they brought some really good ideas. They even worked with the Antarctic Centre for a couple of them in terms of getting young people to understand what the Antarctic region looks like. Danielle, do you have anything else?
No, just to add to what you said, it has been a busy time. There's lots of things happening in the youth space, but I think that shows a lot of opportunity and shows how active and well connected the youth sector is.
Cool.
Cool. So something that Tyler and I were able to capture in this report is a few updates from our different community governance teams in the different board areas, because they're out there day to day at that grassroots level with the community. A few things that they sort of highlighted was that there's growing leadership and civic participation. There's interest in some of those spaces. So, for example, in Addington, the Manuka Rangatahi Ropu successfully advocated for a local basketball court, so it just shows that there's people interested in how they can interact with civics. And similarly, the Littleton team have seen some young people becoming more and more interested in civic matters and being part of some of their community decisions and community meetings. Another way that our boards support is through partnership and through funding, for example. So there's been a few mobile youth hubs funded in Riccarton and Linwood, and there's also initiatives like in Papanui and Northlands Mall around looking at safety of young people in the malls and how they can have community workers or youth workers on site to help support the young people coming through the mall. Do you want to add anything, Tyler?
No, all good. Actually, no, sorry, I do. I will note that each community board is different, we know that, and their approaches are different. So if you're looking at a Riccarton community board, it has a completely different population to what the East might have. But the youth actions that each community board have are specifically aligned to them. And it's really cool to see the different bespoke options and ways that they manage the young people in each community board area. It's really cool to see from the elected members be active in that space.
A few challenges that our community governance teams raised as well that they were seeing as sort of trends across the youth sector included some insufficient support systems for young people, so sometimes they're not having those role models in their life. Another thing was difficulties for the youth organisations themselves in securing funding and qualified staff. And then in certain areas, there's different geographic and financial barriers. So, for example, in our Banks Peninsula, transport and access to activities can be limited for some of our young people. So each area, as Tyler said, looks a bit different. Another interesting point I might raise while we're on this slide is just around our strengthening and communities funding that we recently went through. And so we actually increased the amount of funding that we put towards youth-focused organisations in this financial year compared to last year. It was slightly lower than the year prior to that, but there was an increase recently.
Awesome. Next one. This is probably of interest to everyone here. The general state of the sector at the moment and how it feels. So there are some, we're noticing that central government's moving really quickly, which is great. They're moving fast and they're trying to address things that they promised to address. The Royal Commission of Inquiry into Abuse and Care was an extremely confronting one. More than 200,000 people were affected by trauma. There's also a sense of safety change in terms of bringing the cops back on the beat. That has actually received a really positive feedback from all of the community, talking about how safe they feel. And even young people feel a lot more safer, particularly in CBD, having more cops on the beat. There's also a new priority going from the CBD and Riccarton, not unironically, Riccarton is another place that the police would like to see a bit more cops on the street. Rotherham Street is quite a interesting rubbing point for young people, and social media usage is to contribute to that. They're also tackling phone use in schools. The teachers are quite split on that. I've been to quite a lot of schools around the Rohe, and they're quite split because they're saying they're already doing it, and it's going to add to that. But hey yaha. The next one is also the government have actually started bringing in a new amendment bill from Associate Health Minister Casey Costello to address youth vaping. And that is a highly significant epidemic for young people. We're seeing it everywhere. Kids as young as 10 vaping. And it's been quite confronting seeing that actually at the bus exchange. And YCD are actively engaging with those young people to ensure that they're on the right and narrow. But this bill, I believe, and I'm in support of it, would actually help address some of those issues around youth vaping. And lastly, there's also the Aotearoa Youth Declaration, which was in alignment with the UN, around telling the government exactly what young people want from every single bit of policy that they've gone through. They've got priorities and a summary. I'm happy to circulate that when needed. But you'd be surprised at some of the answers that the young people gave in terms of economic development, taxation, growing their people, education reform, so many things lined into that. All right.
Awesome. And yeah, the next 6 months, as you would have seen, it's already been a busy year in the youth space, and I'm sure that will only continue. A few things that I'd just like to put on your radar. So there is the Involve conference, which will be happening next year in August, and that's a national youth conference. In previous years, it's been in the North Island, but it's coming to Christchurch for the first time since 2005. They usually get quite good attendance, over 1,000 attendees, so that's something that our youth sector and young people are excited about. And then Tyler will be doing another report next year, and we were discussing that it could be good to capture what some of our other units are doing, those units that have touch points with young people every single day, our libraries, for example, our parks, our Gear Up program. So hopefully we mention that next time. Anything else, Tyler?
Yep.
Hey,
all good.
Guys,
Thank
very
you.
good. Danielle and Tyler, a great comprehensive report. And the one thing that you have said, I'll pick up, vaping is going to bite us in the backside one day. It already is. It's something that if we can get on top of that would be good. Councillor Johansson's got a question.
Yeah. I mean, and again, just to acknowledge the awesome work that you've done in that space. Really cool to get that report. Just one issue that we were dealing with as a city with YCD, particularly after the earthquake, was the issue of youth housing. And I just wondered, I know in the Youth Action Plan there's a whole section on youth housing, and I know that we've got a greater and social affordable housing action plan with a number of things in it. But I just was really interested to know if there'd been any discussion with young people around housing as an issue. I see in that chart that you've given us the cost of living rate's high, and there's also housing, but it's a little bit lower. But I was really, really keen to understand if there is any work program looking at the provision of housing for young people in the city and what that might look like.
Yeah, well, policy's ever changing. I mean, if you refer to 8.5 of the report, central government are changing the scope of criteria for emergency housing, and also in collaboration with budget contracts and other things related to housing and emergency housing, it's becoming a lot more difficult for young people to access those homes. Even the cuts through Oranga Tamariki has actually become quite substantial. I'm just talking on the policy here. So I think there does need to be more provision around emergency housing, and the Youth Hub will hopefully alleviate some of that pain. But there's still a lot in emergency housing, particularly in the Riccarton ward, in the Hornby ward, and in the east.
Okay, good to go. So thank you for the report. I'll put that. We've got to move in second, eh? I would say Tyler probably wants to move it.
Happy to move.
And Mark will second it. So I'll put that motion.
I just want to say excellent report.
Excellent work,
Thank you
yes.
so much. Thanks for the work you're doing on it.
You're really gratified the.
Could I
Yeah.
Could I give a shout out to Danielle and the work
Yeah.
that she's done? She's done an amazing job with this, and Gary and John for the support too. Gary actually approached me at a youth council meeting and said, "Hey Tyler, I want to support you. What do you need?" I said, "Give me a hand. Give me a hand, man." He goes, "I got you." And he gave me Danielle, so I appreciate it very much, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
guys.
very much.
Thank
Cheers.
you. So with that, I will put that motion. All those in favour? Against? Thank you. That is carried. Now we're moving on to item 10, the Mayor's Monthly Report.